They told us Russia's war machine was unstoppable, the second most powerful army in the world. But 2.5 years into this war, that slogan is starting to sound like one of those terrible online dating bios. Sure, it sounds impressive, but the reality is a whole lot messier. Because here's what the Kremlin doesn't want you to hear. Since the start of this year alone, Russia has lost about 100,000 soldiers killed, not wounded, not missing, dead. Add in the wounded, the captured, and the permanently incapacitated. And the total number of Russian casualties since February 2022 could be over 1 million. That's more people than the entire population of some European countries. And it's not just manpower. We're talking thousands of tanks, armored vehicles, artillery pieces gone. Some battles have seen losses at a 5-to-1 ratio in Ukraine's favor. But somehow, instead of slowing down, Putin's pushing harder than ever. In Donetsk Oblast right now, Russian forces are hammering Ukrainian lines, trying to push toward the Dobrapilya-Kramatorsk highway. It's a key supply route for Ukraine, and if Russia can cut it, they can disrupt logistics across a huge swath of the front. They've made some advances, yes, but we're not talking about sweeping, game-changing offensives. These are incremental gains, the kind you could measure with a ruler instead of a map. And they're paying for every meter of ground with staggering losses, both in men and machines. It's like watching a boxer swing wildly in the 12th round. Not because they have a strategy, but because they're hoping one last punch will win the fight before the bell. Meanwhile, the bombardment continues. Thousands of drone strikes and air attacks aimed at Ukrainian positions. The scale is enormous, but it's also desperate. You don't use this much ammunition if you think you have unlimited time. Now, let's put the numbers into perspective, because numbers have no political bias. Russia started this war with one of the largest tank fleets on Earth. Today, a huge chunk of it is scrap metal. The Kremlin's replacing modern losses with decades-old models, some of them designed when the Soviet Union was still a thing. These tanks weren't meant for modern battlefields filled with precision-guided missiles, kamikaze drones, and satellite surveillance. And it's not just tanks. Artillery, armored personnel carriers, supply trucks, gone. Sanctions have cut Russia off from key components, especially microchips, meaning they can't build replacements fast enough. Factories are either slowing down or retooling to work with inferior parts. When your new weapon comes with a manual written in 1983, it's safe to say things aren't going well. So here's the obvious question. With losses like this, why doesn't Putin just call it? Well, the short answer is he can't. The longer answer, he's betting on a future where Russia controls enough land to negotiate from a position of strength. That's why we're seeing renewed offensives instead of peace talks. He's trying to gain as much ground as possible before any serious negotiations begin. Zelensky, meanwhile, has been clear. There will be no peace deal that forces Ukraine to give up territory. And with US and European weapons flowing back into Ukrainian hands, Patriot air defense systems, long-range missile batteries, thousands of artillery shells, Kiev's digging in for whatever's coming next. And while Washington and Brussels might be getting pressure from some corners to push for talks, NATO's latest funding framework is making sure Ukraine can keep fighting. Over $1 billion in new European pledges, and more on the way. This isn't winding down, it's gearing up. Here's the reality on the ground. Russia has made gains in Donetsk, Luhansk, and parts of Kharkiv. But let's put that in perspective. Since January 2024, they've captured less than 1% of Ukraine's territory. That's not exactly the kind of map change that wins wars. Meanwhile, Ukraine has been poking holes in Russia's defenses, in some cases literally crossing the border into Russia's Kursk region. Imagine being a Russian citizen and hearing your government say, "Don't worry, everything's fine," while Ukrainian drones are buzzing over your own town. The front lines are a patchwork of contested gray zones, especially in eastern Donbas and southern Zaporizhia. These are brutal meat grinders. Both sides pour in troops, fight for days, maybe gain a few hundred meters, and then get pushed back. The casualty rates are high, the morale is low, and the strategic payoff is often non-existent. And this is where the clock comes in. War isn't just about firepower, it's about sustaining that firepower over time. Right now, Russia's burning through resources faster than they can replace them. Every tank they lose, every trained soldier they bury, every missile they fire, it's all coming out of a shrinking pool. Yes, the upcoming US-Russia talks in Alaska might change the diplomatic atmosphere, but Ukraine's already warning its allies. Don't trust Russian promises. They've used negotiations as breathing space before, and every pause in the past has led to another offensive. The uncomfortable truth for the Kremlin: time might be their biggest enemy right now. The longer this drags on, the more their so-called unstoppable war machine starts to look like it's running on fumes. While the fighting grinds on in eastern Ukraine, the rest of the world isn't just sitting back with popcorn. Global politics are shifting in real time. Energy markets are unstable, trade routes are adapting, and countries far from the battlefield are suddenly rethinking their defense strategies. Europe is rushing to secure alternative gas supplies, while NATO is reinforcing its eastern flank like it's 1983 all over again. Even nations that used to stay neutral are now picking sides, because everyone's realizing this isn't just about Ukraine. It's about whether raw military force can still redraw borders in the 21st century. And here's the kicker: if Russia's war machine collapses, it won't just reshape Eastern Europe. It could trigger ripple effects in conflicts and political flashpoints from the South China Sea to the Middle East. In other words, this war isn't happening in a vacuum. So now we're left staring at two possibilities. Either Putin's war machine is limping toward the end of its road, or we're on the edge of an even more dangerous phase. If the numbers are right, Russia is bleeding resources, manpower, and credibility at a pace they can't sustain. But wars have a nasty habit of defying logic. That's why what happens over the next 6 months could decide not just the fate of Ukraine, but the balance of power for the next decade. And that's where I want to hear from you. Do you think we're watching the slow-motion collapse of a military superpower, or the calm before a storm that's going to hit harder than anything we've seen so far? Drop your take in the comments, because this is a conversation the world should be having. Make sure to hit like if you found this breakdown useful. It tells me to keep making deep dives like this, and subscribe so you don't miss the next update. Because one thing's for certain, this story is far from over.